The following program may contain subject matter and language suitable for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Did you get all that?
Yeah.
No, not you. Did they get all that? Oh. See, we thought we'd introduce ourselves on the show psychically today because we're talking about psychics. Yeah. And so we figured if you had any kind of psychic power, you would have heard me say, hi, my name's Norm. And then you would have heard Jeff say,
my name's Jeff.
And then you would have heard me say, and welcome to the Meltdown. And then you would have heard me say, today we're talking about psychics. So, today we're talking about psychics. For those of you who aren't psychic capable, today we're going to explore that because we've got some, for our fun facts, we're going to tell you 6 things that would qualify you as a psychic, what makes a psychic. Mm-hmm. Plus we've got a Meltdown Minute with Lou, and then we've got some psychic fails to talk about. So, you know, I mean, these are really interesting ones too, and ones that you should check out on your own as well. But first, let's go to some Meltdown fun facts. Okay, so 6 factors that make up a psychic, according to Craig Wheeler, associate member of the Parapsychological Association. Okay, so here is number 1. Okay. Various factors, including biology, or nature, trauma and abuse, or nurture, and temperament-type preferences, or personality, can predispose an individual to be an anomalously sensitive person, or an ASP. Here we go. Number 2, if an individual is anomalously sensitive in one realm, the physiological, for example, she or he is very likely to be anomalously sensitive in the other realms, cognitive, emotional, altered states of consciousness, and transpersonal experiences as well. Number 3, the anomalously sensitive person is likely to be female, be hypopigmented, blonde hair, blue eyes, be non-right-handed, so left-handed or ambidextrous, be artists, be born as one of a set of twins or triplets, etc., and have an other than conventionally heterosexual sexual orientation. So that's interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Here's number 4. The anomalously sensitive person is likely to have an introverted rather than extroverted orientation, have a preference for an intuitive rather than sensate mode of perceiving, and have a preference for a feeling rather than thinking mode of judging. Okay, number 5 on the 6 factors of being psychic. The anomalously sensitive person is likely to have unusually sensitive immune systems, be highly reactive and responsive to sensory stimuli, exhibit learning attention styles that differ from the norm, be very attuned to the emotions of both themselves and others, and be specifically facile at accessing altered states of consciousness, and to frequently have transpersonal, which is metaphysical, paranormal, or psychic experiences.
Interesting. Okay. Facile. I like it when French words are used in English.
So do I. Bien, me aussi. And now we're going to talk about something called the HISS data. Okay. Now HISS stands for the Holistic Inventory of Stimulus Sensitivities. It is a questionnaire that I guess a lot of these individuals fill out, and then that determines or helps people determine at the association if they are in fact worthy of membership. So the HISS data supports the position of those negativists who hold that anomalous sensitivity is indicative of temporal limbic epilepsy. The HIS data also supports the position of those positivists who hold that anomalous sensitivity is indicative of Kundalini arousal. The HIS data also supports those who have no position and hold that anomalous sensitivity is indicative of anomalous sensitivity. All right, well, that was a kind of a short, quick, somewhat of a study on the 6 factors that make up a psychic. And now, let's go to another Meltdown Minute with Lou.
This has been a show all about psychics. Why are we fascinated by psychics, folks? It's amazing. They've been around as long as people have been around. And I think the reason is that we are fascinated by the idea of the unknown, of someone having access to that, right? Like Doctor Strange, but with less cape, probably. You know? We love that idea of like, this is your future and here's how you avoid those mistakes. Like, that is something that we just can't get enough of. And it's amazing to me because we're always like, oh, that would be so cool. If we could do that, like, we had to read your mind. That would be awesome. Or would it be fucking horrible? Because the last thing I want is when I'm walking down the street and some guy walks by me and then I just randomly hear, that guy's head is not shaped right. That's not right. I'm not going to have a great day from that point onward. Unless, of course, somebody walks by and then I hear that they're thinking they want to, I don't know, touch my bum. And then now I'm like, should I go and let them? And do they know that now I want to let them because they're psychics? You can't. It's a catch-22.
Thanks very much, Lou. And now, some Meltdown stupidness. So now we present to you 6 sensational psychic fails. So try to follow along. There's an awful lot of text here, but we'll put it up on screen so you can read along while I narrate, if you will.
Narrate.
Let's talk first about Uri Geller. Do you remember Uri Geller? The spoon bender.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes. Well, here's something interesting about Uri Geller. Maybe you remember this, too, this whole fail.
Perhaps.
Uri Geller found fame with mind-reading tricks and, more famously, mind-powered spoon bending. Swearing that he had actual psychic powers, he used a bunch of sleight-of-hand tricks already well known to magicians to apparently bend spoons with his thoughts. Of course, any magician with a moral compass knew exactly what he was doing and made it their mission to take the weasel down. The result was one of the most tense and cringeworthy appearances in talk show history. When Uri Geller was booked to appear on The Tonight Show, host Johnny Carson, a former magician himself, was understandably skeptical about Geller's claims and had called up professional illusionist and psychic head-stomper James Randi to ask how the tricks might really be done. As Randy explained, the easiest way to bend a spoon with your mind would be to spend a few minutes before the show bending the spoon back and forth with your hand until the metal is so weak that it just falls limp when you hold it up to the camera. With this in mind, Carson surprised Geller on the show by presenting a table full of assorted spoons and knickknacks rather than letting him bring his own props, and gave Geller free rein to pick whatever trick he wanted to perform. You can watch Geller slowly descend into panic mode, knowing that his trick won't work and millions are watching. It just gets harder to watch as it goes. Carson looks on, annoyed, as Geller tries to stall by ineffectually waving his hands over the table while he works out how the hell he's going to get out of this one. After a series of the most incredibly awkward silences you will ever witness on a television broadcast, Geller eventually squirms out of the segment by claiming that he's just not feeling strong enough tonight. And that you look that up on YouTube, and it's really it is hard to watch. Like you almost feel for the guy. Like if you've ever been caught in like a white lie where you've said something just because you never thought you were ever going to be called on it, and then you're called on it. It's so you can feel the awkwardness. You know what I mean? Like you kind of can relate to it, and it's so hard to watch. All right, here's our next sensational psychic fail. A British television entertainer wanted to test the abilities of 3 psychics, inviting them to an abandoned chocolate factory to try to summon the spirit of its long-deceased owner. Amazingly, the psychics were all able to channel the ghost of the man, an American named George Bull, and provide a startlingly accurate account of his life on the spot. He had managed the factory in the late 1800s. Angry, aggressive, and generally the opposite of Willy Wonka, Bull got himself killed on the job when he caused a team of delivery horses to panic and trample him. That's incredible information the psychics were able to glean from just speaking to the spirit, especially considering that Bull never existed and his story was completely made up on the spot. In preparation for the show, the producers had planted fake information about George Bull on the chocolate factory's website and hung a fake photograph of him in the foyer. Even though they were told nothing about the story beforehand, the medium still managed to channel a guy named George who got trampled by horses. In other words, they revealed that they possessed the amazing power to do a basic Google search.
Indeed.
So, there you go. I mean, it sucks when you fail at something that was such a setup, and it sucks that they set them up like that. But I guess in a way, if you really want to see if someone has the ability, I mean, if a real psychic would have gone in there and said, no, this doesn't make sense. There's no George Bull. I'm not getting anything from it. That I would have been impressed with.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what they were waiting for. I don't know. Okay, so here's an interesting one. Some psychics don't need to go out in public to embarrass themselves. They can do that in a cushy studio right over the phone. Take the case of a British psychic, simply known as Wayne, who appeared on infomercials where people would call in looking for psychic advice, which he would respond to with vague, ambiguous answers. Sometime in 2012, a man with an Irish accent called him with a tale about his childhood. Funny thing was, his childhood was verbatim the backstory of the title character in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The caller, identifying himself as Will, spun a tale about growing up in West Philadelphia and hanging around the playground with his friends like DJ Jazzy Jeff. But then one day, a couple of guys, they were up to no good, started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight. My mom got scared. Ostensibly, his question was about whether he would ever meet up with his old crew from Philadelphia again. Missing the ruse entirely, Wayne shuffles his tarot cards and advises Will that he should try getting in touch with them through social media, which is exactly the kind of advice that you need from a phone psychic who is charging you several dollars per minute. Getting bored, Will starts to see how far he can push it, going on to say that he used to be a rapper, but because there wasn't much market for that kind of music in the 80s, he moved on to an entertainment career. In the end, he comes out and says, "I'm Will Smith," which was literally the only point at which the other shoe dropped for poor Wayne. Probably too late for his career.
It's one name, Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne. Okay, this one's kind of cool. In 2008, Australia broadcast a reality show called The One, which was like American Idol except with psychics. The premise was to find Australia's top psychic and involved putting several psychics through a series of challenges to discern which, if any of them, had genuine magic powers. Being that apparently they failed 94% of the challenges put to them, it seems that question was pretty much answered. But out of the myriad failures, one of the most embarrassing was the helicopter search. The psychics were dropped off in a forest and given 15 minutes to find a waiting helicopter. To aid them in their search, they were given a map and a personal item belonging to the pilot, wallet, keys, a novelty butt plug, etc. The psychic vibes coming from these items were supposed to guide the contestants to the chopper. If you can guess how that worked out, you're more psychic than they are. 4 out of 10 contestants were able to find the helicopter, but that sounds less impressive when you know that they had a map of the area and the chopper was uncreatively located in the opposite corner from where they started. For the rest, they ran around totally randomly while spouting psychic-sounding nonsense about feeling a pull and listening to their angel guides. At one point, one of them feels a strong pull to the right when the helicopter is clearly visible to his left. Another loops around and ends up back at the car that dropped her off, while a third says a voice kept telling her to run, as opposed to what? Sit down and hope a friendly kangaroo carries you to the goal? Remember, these are Australia's top psychics.
Oh.
If they had recruited some of their lesser colleagues, they would have ended up dead in New Zealand somewhere.
Good thing they went with the best.
Well,
Best is still pretty bad, apparently. But...
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, these are obviously extreme examples of psychics or people calling themselves psychics being put to the test. Here's another one. Like most psychics whose shtick is talking to dead people, James Van Prague's performance relies on cold reading, a technique where you start out making general guesses and gradually hone in on more specific ones to create the illusion that you are talking to Uncle Jack's ghost. The ghosts are always happy, by the way, because nobody wants to hear that grandma is getting jabbed by pitchforks in hell. Generally, when you're filming a psychic who you want to make look good, you'll edit out the stuff they get wrong so that it looks like they're only getting hits. If you forget to do that, you might wind up with something like Van Prague's appearance on Australian talk show The Circle. Van Prague starts out by asking a lady about her dead mother, correctly guessing that she took some kind of medication. You know, like every old woman ever. From there it went downhill as he asked whether she had arthritis. No. A back problem. No. Or trouble with her legs. All common ailments that he assumed had a good chance of a hit. Realizing that he's starting to sink, he asks whether someone else has leg problems and learns that her father had 2 hip replacements. Bingo. But then so he can't walk as well as he used to. No, he walks very well. Dejected sigh. Backpedaling frantically, he asks about a Kathy or a Catherine. No dice. He correctly guesses that they are Catholic, like a quarter of Australians. And amazingly has a vision of a picture of Mother Mary in someone's house. Now, a picture of Mary in a Catholic household? Why, this man must have had a direct phone line to the afterlife. That's a tongue-in-cheek, by the way. The marathon of failures continues when he asks who in her family plays music. Nobody. At which point he abandons ship and starts questioning someone else, asking a lady whether her dead father liked cars. She replies with an eye roll that would utterly shrivel your balls. After another string of guesses that yielded only puzzled and slightly amused glares, the host of the show mercifully ended the segment, telling him that it was very intriguing. Presumably, quite a few people went home no longer believing in ghosts. Yeah, there's another example. And if you're a person like that, if you're a psychic who, you know, actually believes in your abilities and stuff, it's quite ballsy to go on television and go in front of all kinds of people. And even more so if you know you're a fake.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
Exactly.
It's got to take a lot of, I mean, everybody wants their fame, so going on a show will get you that.
Yeah.
But man, you want to get good fame in that case.
Maybe in some cases these people really have convinced themselves psychologically that they are legitimate.
Yes, and you know what? Here is a perfect example. Our last psychic fail is about a man who felt just that way. Yanagi Riken is a Japanese fighter who claims to be an expert in the art of Kai, or psychic fighting. His technique allegedly allows him to defeat his opponents without touching them, using the psychic powers of chi rather than the more traditional power of punching dudes in the face. And just as an aside, you need to check this video out on YouTube. It's very funny. A video of Riken in action against his students shows that the Kai style relies on casually waving your hands through the air while your disciples take stage dives that make the extras from direct-to-DVD Chuck Norris movies look like Laurence Olivier. If we saw this out of context, we'd assume it was bad anime cosplay. You would think that Riken's antics are a scam to trick gullible wimps into forking out money for DVDs, but depressingly, Riken appears firmly convinced about his own abilities, because another video documents what happened after he made a $5,000 bet with an MMA fighter that he could defeat him with psychic ability. We can assume that his students shifted uncomfortably in their seats as he laid out the challenge, because up to this point, they had all been pretending to get knocked out by his invisible Hadokens to make a crazy old guy feel good about himself. If you watch closely, you can see the exact moment the professional realizes this is bullshit. After Riken slaps the air a couple of times, eliciting oohs from the crowd and absolutely nothing else, the fighter drops his already casual guard and goes to town, overwhelming Riken's psychic shield with the mystical art of actual kicks to the face. After Riken recovers, the fighter seems hesitant to continue, at this point realizing that he's essentially just beating up a confused old man. But Riken insists, perhaps hoping to salvage at least a little dignity. Moments later, the video ends with Riken writhing on the ground in a fetal position, having learned an important lesson in the most brutal way possible. It could have been worse. He could have tried to use that shit on a mugger. I mean, there's trying to prove yourself, and then that's so sad. But essentially, you almost have to think he actually believed that this was true, and then you know that if that is the case, his students are really the ones to blame for taking those falls. And by the way, they look really bad. Like, they look so bad, Jeff. Wow. His students, I guess maybe they were in awe of this guy, and they wanted to believe that he was actually doing this, but boy, that MMA fighter wasn't having any of it. He's like, oh no.
Look, you've had enough, buddy. No, I'm psychic. I will still beat you up. You've had enough.
Okay, so we will see you next week for the finale episode of Season 4. Lou Saracino joins us. It's going to be a shitload of fun. I hope you can join us. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.